I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United Now on a roll call. President Fish? Here. Vice President Pellegrino? Here. Secretary Wadsworth? Here. Chief Justice Tabor? Here. College Counsel? Here. Director of Community Outreach? Here. Director of Public Relations? Here. Senator Dahab? Not here. Senator Rogers? Senator Humphrey? Not here. Senator Self? Pro Tem Fees? Senator Totino? Senator D'Argenio? Not here. Senator Rosamilia? And Senator Schnorr. Our advisor? CFB? Not here. Wildcat Media? The Factory Times? Excused. Web? Wildcat Esports? And SAC and Res Life are not here. And now to the approval of minutes of December 8th. Do we have any discussion for these minutes? Alright, seeing none as with that. Does anyone oppose unanimous consent to the minutes? Seeing none, that passes 6-0-0. We have no announcements, but we do have one guest speaker. If you'd like to please come to the mic.
Hello. Good. How's everybody doing? Good. Nice to see you all dressed so much nicer than I have today. Real quick announcement. I want to take up everybody's time. Next Tuesday is our student involvement / job fair happening right here in the student center. In the lobby area will be all the organizations. Close to the MPR2 area to my right over here is going to be your academic departments, and the majority of the MPR1 will be all the different student clubs and everything. So there's not going to be names on any of the tables, so come please grab a table if you need an outlet. Table towards the outside, of course, but that's it. Next Tuesday. Thank you.
All right. Concluding with that, on to exec reports. Our president.
The break was a busy time for me. I started to work on some interesting projects that I hope we can get started with this semester. I'll be working with the PR team in Career Services to set up professional headshot days to offer students free and professional headshots. I'll also be working with Lucas Nolan and the Wellness Center to start a professional clothing drive this semester. I'll also be reaching out to the Poly Pantry and Library about our reserves poll and the donations for updates and improvements for both of those locations. Senators, I need two things from you. First, I need your bio and headshots. You can find that link in either the email or Telegram messages I've sent. And I'm also, because I'm working to create a social media campaign that promotes SGU and yourselves, so then students know who to contact and who they're looking for when they're on campus. I also need committee dates, times, and locations, as I'm beginning to promote those as well. And then yesterday, I met with the provost and we discussed the possibility of a study area in Donovan, among other student concerns. I've also had my first meeting with Dr. Russell on Monday. And a few last announcements on important dates. Please keep your calendars open for the Student Government Conference on April 28th through the 30th. Please note that this semester, I've decided to make it required that you go to Professional Development Day before you're considered to be eligible to go to the conference. So again, make sure you go to Professional Development Day. Some more important dates on February 8th, there is a higher education day in Albany where we can work with SUNY SA and other student governments to advocate for higher education. One thing that we did learn during the governor's inauguration and her State of the State address is she does plan to increase SUNY tuition, so that's one of the things that we will be advocating against. And then lastly, on February 14th, we'll have another advocacy day and lobby day. And if you're interested in joining us in Albany for either one of those days, please let me know. I yield.
On to the Vice President report. Hi, all. Welcome back to the first day of the Senate meeting. So, aside from all the hard work that all the org heads and committee heads have done throughout the past semester, I'd like to congratulate all of you for that, and I hope we have a great next semester. But, on to what we need to do. Org heads, I'm just going to send you a meeting invite following this meeting just regarding our new org head meeting times. And committee heads, thank you to whoever has already sent out new meeting times. I will send out meeting times for policy committee following this meeting as well. And to those who haven't sent out, I'll just contact you following this meeting as well. But aside from that, I have no other report. I yield on to the secretary. On to Chief Justice.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm excited for a fresh semester, and other than that, no report.
On to our Director of PR.
No report, but I'm glad to see everybody's here.
Our College Council.
Hello, everyone. So I recently have been appointed to the Presidential Search Process Committee. So if there's any traits or anything you want to see of the next president, please let me know. I can bring it up during the process. Thank you, and I yield.
Our Director of Community Outreach.
Hello, everyone. I hope you all had a great break, and I look forward to this upcoming semester. This semester, I'm hoping to achieve over 250 hours of cumulative volunteer work, both between myself and events that I organize. My first step towards this goal will be a weekly service where we go to a local food shelter and prepare and distribute food. My first challenge regarding this will be getting the people to run it. So if you or anyone you know is interested, please let me know. I currently plan to be hosting these on Wednesday nights. I have other projects in the works that will be announced when the time is right. Otherwise, I have no other announcements and hope to make this my strongest semester yet. And to all commuters, please have a safe drive home. Road conditions are not good right now.
And our advisor.
Ben already talked about my announcement about the volunteer, but I do want to make the announcement that sign off is coming. Thank you for that. There are positions that have 8 to 12 hours for each position at $14.20 an hour and are open to all students. They are not work-study positions. Thanks.
That concludes the exec reports. On to our committee reports. On to academic affairs and tech. Budget committee, unless the co-chair has a report.
So budget committee, I'm sorry, I got to pull that up. Budget committee will be meeting every other Friday starting on the 3rd at 12 p.m. And I'm excited to have this role as the interim treasurer and the budget committee chair. I have some cool projects that I want to work on for next year's budget, along with continuing the stipends, the stipend work. So I'm really excited to get that committee rolling. I yield.
And class gift.
Good afternoon, everybody, and I guess it's time for the class gift committee to start making some big decisions. The scheduling has been a little bit delayed, but this should be sent out around today to everybody. If you want to be involved in, well, at least hearing out when we're going to be and getting ready before I can announce it during the next meeting, please let me know and I can include you in on the emails. I believe that'll be all. I'll yield.
And on to game room if we have a co-chair report. Seeing none. On to DI and wellness. Food committee.
And I would like to share about our last food committee meeting. We met up with Jeff Alex and Eric Paula to talk about the opening of the food lab. They were explaining that the food lab menu will rotate every few weeks. The food committee and Aramark want to know what time works best for students to get in an informal food committee session out in the campus center lobby. With that said, our next meeting will be next Wednesday from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock p.m. I yield.
On to Policy Committee, no report, and Safety and Facilities. If we have a co-chair report. Seeing none, that should conclude committee reports. On to org reports. Webb.
Just have a quick announcement today. A lot of people have been asking me about bowling. It is not starting up this week. It should be starting up this upcoming Thursday, as long as I get a response from the bowling alley. It's just been a little trouble with communication. Thank you. I yield.
On to CFB.
See you guys back. Hope you guys had a good break. Maybe you were busy. Maybe you weren't. I don't know. I don't keep track of you guys too much. Anyway, I got like two cool things. I made 2 cool posters. One of them is like a little like infographic thing for clubs. It's got a bunch of QR codes on it, so hopefully that makes it easier for them to like start up, get going. Second thing, we got an event anyone can go to, not clubs. I mean, clubs can go. They get money, but anyone can go. Bob Ross Painting, we're doing it again because I like it, and we have a lot of materials. So that's 27th. So show up, maybe.
On to Wildcat Media.
No report.
The Factory Times isn't here, so. Gotcha.
So due to some policy changes, the Factory Times, I'm going to try to promote some more online ways to involve online students. And then we're also going to start trying to get our physical papers out again. Last semester we kind of started late on that, so I didn't see it necessary to get a paper out that last month because I thought it was going to be a kind of a waste of funds, but hopefully this semester we'll get going a little bit more. And I'll work with Mohit a little bit more and the rest of the Factory Times team.
And Wildcat Esports.
Hello everyone, I hope everyone had a good break. This week we are wrapping up tryouts with day 2 of Rocket League tonight and Overwatch 2, Smash Ultimate, and Modern Warfare 2 this weekend. If you want to compete or just want to have fun with teammates, join us this weekend. Next week we start up our events with Among Us Mondays and Smash Ultimate Weeklies on Wednesdays. We hope you join us for these fan favorites. I yield.
And that should conclude all reports. We have no old business for this meeting. On to new business. Resolution 2223-15. The senator who is reading this is not here, so Pro Tem Fees.
Resolution number 20.
Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Rosamilia.
Projector for the Student Center Theater is broken. The student government at Utica would like to purchase new equipment to replace the broken equipment, and the student government at Utica will use no more than $5,000 out of line 999 to purchase this equipment. Therefore, be enacted. The student government at Utica will purchase the following equipment: 1 projector. Be it finally resolved, the student government at Utica will purchase the listed equipment.
Do we have any discussion? Senator Rosamilia.
Just for a point of information, what would happen if they went over the 5,000 limit? Just because of like inflation and stuff. I yield.
Our president.
So they can't go over that 5,000 because we're only giving them $5,000 in this resolution. If you look at the attachment on the bottom of the resolution, you can see that it was the total last year was 4,000. So we're giving them still enough money to deal with inflation, shipping, and then insulation if necessary.
Do we have any further discussion? Alright, seeing none, we'll be going on to voting. All those in favor of this resolution? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain? With that, that passes 6-0-0. On to Bill 2223-17. Senator Rosamilia.
Motion to accept Senate Bill number 2223-17.
Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Self.
We, the members at the student government at Utica, student government at Utica. Oh, sorry.
You're all good.
The purpose of this bill is to amend Article 11, petitions in the SGU policies and procedures. I yield.
Do we have any discussion for this bill? Our audience member.
Few things to say, so just sit tight. I would like to start by talking about SGU Engage. The last time the policies and procedures were uploaded was March 23rd, 2022. I know that the policies and procedures were changed that semester and last semester, so the one that the students have access to is not accurate. The Constitution was last uploaded April 6, 2021. We vote in a new one every year, so I don't understand why the one last year wasn't put up. So if anything I say is incorrect, it's because I have access to the one that was voted in last semester, correct? But I'm going off of what the average student has access to, because not everyone has access to the SGU files. So, I'd like to start off by talking about 11.2 from the bill. It says that paper only. In the original version of the article, it also says that the paper can be obtained online, so I don't really understand why that's being taken away. There also already exists 11.2.0 and 11.3.0 in the policies and procedures. So it wouldn't be adding them, it would be amending them, and that can't be fixed under House rules. Adding and amending are two very different things, and so it needs to be fixed. It's just not correct. 11.4.1 talks about adding dates to signatures. I don't really see why that's a necessary thing. And then I want to talk about 11.4.0. It says the Chief Justice can say if the signature sheets are valid. It's not really defined what makes something invalid or valid. There's a little loose guideline there. It says date, a couple things. I don't think it says enough. I think the huge thing, especially last year, got hounded every time I wrote policy, that it needs to be future-proof. It needs to be as tight as you possibly can. You can't leave these open to huge interpretations because, it doesn't say what's invalid. It says what's valid. It doesn't say enough about what makes a signature sheet invalid. I want to talk about the Chief Justice position. It's a brand new position. It's kind of been reintroduced back in. And so I feel like not a lot of people fully understand it, and so I'm going to explain a couple things that I understand about the Chief Justice position. It used to be non-RA eligible. When the RA eligibility thing came into question, they decided that it was 8 hours. It was more than 8 hours of work. That got rolled back when we changed the position, fine. But we've continually added more work. This is the third bill that changes what the Chief Justice does. So it's just a little concerning that we're probably starting to push that 8-hour mark. Second, it says in the contract for Chief Justice that they must run election committee. But in election policy, it says that a member in an elected position cannot be in election committee. So is Chief Justice appointed? Because that's concerning if it's appointed. The person who appoints them is the president and not the students. You know what I mean? It's a little concerning that it is not an elected position, but now they get to say that, the petition is invalid. Last semester, Bill 2223-12 was passed. It says Chief Justice gets motioning powers. Cool. It adds it to the contract, which was not re-signed. That's fine, actually, because if you checked policies and procedures, you go under Appendix M, which is House Rules. Fourth bullet point has 2 sub-bullet points. One of them says, Chief Justice, it says, I'll quote, I wrote it down. The Chief Justice can make motions, but cannot motion in business. Chief Justice shows up 4 times, that phrase, in the policies and procedures. 3 of them are in the contract, once is in House Rules. It took me all of 30 seconds to double check. So it's just a little concerning that we're changing positions that we don't even fully understand, and we're not checking the policies and procedures before we're adding stuff to the position. And then to talk about like 11.4.2, like how do we decide we're going to start questioning people? Does the Chief Justice get to make the call? Like, I don't think this petition is good. I don't agree with what this is behind. Or is it someone else? Can someone come and say, I don't agree with this petition? It's so subjective. Are you investigating everyone? Because it doesn't say that. It says you get to choose. So that's just a little concerning. And I was concerned that students wouldn't like people coming up to them and being like, why did you sign this petition? So I went around this morning. I got here at 11:30 in the morning. I walked around for an hour and a half. And I asked students, I walked to them and said, may I ask you a survey question? And if they said yes, I said, let's say someone from student government puts a petition in front of you. They fully explain it to you, and you think, awesome, cool, I love that. And I asked them, would they be more, less likely, or no change into whether or not they'd sign this petition if they understood that later on somebody else may come up to them and be like, why did you sign this? I'll say I only got 22 people in the hour and a half. You know, I don't think that's a awesome survey, but I only read the agenda last night, so it's not like I had all the time in the world. I mean, I wouldn't have time even if I had read it Tuesday when it came out. I got 22 people. One person that said they'd be more likely because they like it when people get mad. Some students said no change because if the petition was important, they would, you know, want to stand, that it was their opinion, they'd be fine to give it. The majority of students said that they would be less likely to sign petitions if they knew that they could be asked about why they were signing it. They said petitions are supposed to be speedy. Some were concerned that it might be voter discrimination. Most said it was not cool. Some people said that they didn't understand why student government felt like they need to berate the students, that it happens often and that they just didn't understand why it continues to happen. Some said that they were just non-confrontational, and some just didn't see why they needed to be questioned on what they're signing. A couple others didn't really agree to either. Some said they would only sign petitions if they were handed to them by certain people, and others said that they would forget by that time, which I think is fair. I don't remember the last thing that I signed my name on. So I think that those are all things. My concern is that, let's say I sign a petition and then I drop out of college. I'm no longer at this school. Is the whole petition invalid because I decided that college wasn't for me anymore? Because that seems to be one of the, it says the petition has to have enrolled students. Well, I'm no longer enrolled. I dropped out. Now this petition that, has hundreds of signatures or whatever is no longer valid. And I'm concerned about 11.9.0 because it is unreadable. There's a double negative. It says not twice. So double negative in language is a positive. So it does say, from what I understand, that the election after this is the only time that it's not clear. And I think the point of that was to make it not include election petitions, but I don't really see why those wouldn't be included because they are petitions. Are we making sure that the senators are accurately discussing their positions before they come up to students and asking them to sign them? It's very concerning. I think there's a lot of good things. I don't think this is a terrible ballot. I don't think overall. I think that defining petitions is awesome, and it definitely needed to be done. There's just some points that I feel like take away student voices, and that if a petition is able to just be shot down because, okay, I'll give you my hypothetical. I'm president, and I appoint my best friend Chief Justice because it's not an elected position. I do something terrible, and the students are like, let's impeach her. Well, my best friend is the person who gets to decide whether it's valid or not. And they could say, oh, well, it's invalid because so-and-so is blah, blah, blah. Or, someone wrote the wrong information, or this signature and this name doesn't match up because someone signed the wrong line. You can find a reason to make something not valid. So it's, you've just shut down the voices of your students. It's concerning to see parts of this bill up as the first thing on the table this semester. So I would really like to hear everyone. I would like to hear the senators speak. I would like to hear, whoever wants to speak on this. There needs to be answers before this can be passed, I think. I yield.
Pro Tem Fees.
Concerned about 11.4.1 about the date. This is just kind of make sure that we're signing these in a timely fashion, because we don't want to get signatures from like last year and then reintroduce it next year. Like that wouldn't really make sense. So that's kind of why we introduced that. However, I do agree with you about
Our president.
So, Pro Tem Fees kind of covered the date. 11.4 with the timeline of the Chief Justice. So the election committee, it's a little confusing. So the Chief Justice, I don't think, I might be wrong, but no longer oversees the election committee. The Vice President does now. So that concern would still kind of be the same, where if the Vice President is running, who would be overseeing it. And I'm not sure if we have a policy on that. I can't remember entirely, because that's a fairly new.
I'm currently working on a bill that would change that. So the Vice President would be the fall election, the Pro Tem would be the spring election.
Okay. Yeah, because I think that's a relatively new thing that we just had to do last spring. And then the Chief Justice. I imagine that 11.4.1. Those are just what valid are, and anything that isn't listed there, which is the invalid signature, so just the opposite. So if there was a duplicate signature. The reasoning behind the enrolled students and not previously enrolled students is we have lists of signature sheets from like 5 to 6 years ago, so I could just pull those back up and say all of these students signed for something, and there'd be no way to contact them, and there'd be no way to like validate that they actually signed what they signed, because we do have those from a few years ago. That's also what the dates are for as well. And the Chief Justice is required to explain fully what failed, and if he does it, and once he does, the individual submitting the signature, she has the freedom to fix the issues that were submitted. So if there's a duplicate signature, just getting one more signature. If somebody said they're currently enrolled and they found out they're interested in student, they'll just have to get one more signature to fill that spot.
Our secretary.
So this is my first point is maybe a point of information. Is the Chief Justice elected? He's elected, am I correct? He's not appointed.
So he previously, they previously were appointed, but it wasn't appointed by the president. It was appointed by the Senate.
But our current Chief Justice was elected, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
current one.
Okay, so just to clarify that a little bit is currently our Chief Justice is an elected position, so was not appointed by anybody. To add on to that a little bit, I do see your point, especially with 11.9.0 in the coming election. I fully see your point. It wasn't something that I even thought about when reading and writing the bill. I guess I had a very different standpoint. So I am not a senator, but I would look to the Senate to maybe consider that as another point. With that, I yield.
Chief Justice.
Before I say anything, I would first like to thank Madam Cassidy for doing her research. If we had 10 more people like her, I feel like we would have a very good, accurate representation of the student body. So I appreciate that. My second point is that something that she brought up earlier that I don't think anybody's spoken has touched on about. We should make sure all our documentation is updated, and that should be something that after this meeting that we make sure we do ASAP. I don't know whose job that is. I wanted to just touch on your point about the RA position, the RA eligibility, and the time commitment. As far as I'm concerned, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the senator position is RA eligible? Okay. In comparison to the senator position and the Chief Justice position, senators do significantly more work, or I guess have more, structured time expectancy, whether it's coming, not just outside of this meeting, but the pro temp meeting and the chairing a committee. Chief Justice just has to go to policy. And then we have our meeting on Tuesday that the name is eluding me. Cabinet, yeah, so sorry. But adding more, the whole point of my campaign was to make sure that when I leave, that the Chief Justice position had a little bit more meat to its bones. So I hope that maybe helps, just adding something like this. I wouldn't imagine, I mean, obviously if you had 6 petitions going around and somebody had to verify all the the signatures, that would run, but on the course. And my second thing is I'm actually in agreement with you in regards to what is the article? The article that was talking about hounding people down. Because one, I think that I agree with what you're saying, that I don't think student government should be the Chief Justice position should never be a kind of police officer thing, like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? But I also think that it's redundant to do that when there are other articles and other sections here that talk about making sure that people come and say, oh, I'm signing this petition when it comes to open forum. So I feel like that there wouldn't be a need to have the Chief Justice to hunt people down essentially and say, oh, hey, I realize you signed this and I want to just make sure everything was fine. Because I feel like there are other sections in the bill that cover that. I yield.
Wildcat Media.
Surfacing for 11.4.1, are there any protections in place if, say, a signature isn't legible? Say, somebody just has terrible handwriting, such as myself. Or another thing is for the date. I understand needing a date there, but do we need to specify the format like the way it is in this bill? Or could people do month, date, year instead? With this is the 11.4.3, Chief Justice may appoint at most 2 senators to help them in this process. Is there anything in place so that the Chief Justice can't appoint a senator who the petition might affect? Say, if it's students saying, we have a problem with this senator, can the Chief Justice appoint that senator to validate signatures? Because that would be a conflict of interest. I yield.
Senator Rosamilia.
The process would be, so like basically the senators would look at the sheets and look it over themselves. Is that what that kind of means? I yield to Chief Justice.
To my interpretation, me as the Chief Justice would appoint, for example, you and then Senator Self, and I would say, hey guys, I need help making sure that these signatures are valid, or just essentially anything that this bill is asking for. That's kind of my assumption. I yield to the floor.
Senator Self. our audience member.
Appreciate all of your questions and points. They definitely help. I can agree with what Pro Temp Fee says in adding in like a percentage or something. Because right now, as this stands, one person is incorrect, the whole thing gets thrown out and has to be redone, and that just, I think that there's some merit to that, but I think that that's a little aggressive. My concern too, that hasn't been addressed yet, is how do we decide what's the decision process of which, because it's subjective. It doesn't say that every petition is being checked. It says that you can check the petitions. So it's to say I'm Chief Justice and my mortal enemy decides to be a senator. Well, they had to submit a petition. I go ask someone like, hey, did you, while you're signing, if I can get, if I can prove that someone was like, no, I didn't know, or blah, blah, blah. It's, I can get someone I don't want in the Senate kicked out, and that seems a bit ridiculous. I think my concern, too, is that it's one person. There's no process behind it. Like, if you want to talk about, let's talk about CFB for a second, because I know the most about that. So, for freezing a club, the entire committee has to decide. It's a whole group effort, and everyone talks about it to balance so that because what it used to be was if you were president, you could be like, I don't like this club, they're frozen until they build me the Great Wall of China, right? We just changed that so that doesn't happen. And I'm not saying it's going to get abused this year. I'm not saying it's going to get abused next year. I'm saying that someone is going to read this, and as it's stated, and find the loopholes. I'm not here to shoot this bill down, because I think there's a lot of really, really good parts to it. But when writing legislation, we have to be incredibly careful with the wording and the way that it's put together so that everyone has the same understanding of what it says. Right now it's super up to interpretation, and there's no guidelines onto how we start questioning these petitions and what the process is and all this stuff, and it's just it's too loose, I think, for it to be if I was a senator, I think it would be too loose to be passed. I yield.
Wildcat Esports.
I want to make two motions into a motion, I guess. Want to make a motion to move up swear-ins to after the reading of Bill number 2023-17, and I want to limit discussions of this bill to 5 minutes.
All right. We'll make that into one motion. So, do we have a second? Seeing none, falls back. Wildcat Esports.
All right then. Can I make a motion to move up swear-ins to after the reading of 2023-17?
Seconded by Pro Tem Fees. Do we have any discussion for the motion? Wildcat Esports.
Due to time constraints, obviously.
All right. Seeing no more discussion, we'll be going on to voting. All those in favor? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain? With that, that passes 6-0-0. Back on to discussion of the bill. Pro Tem Fees. to Senator Rogers.
And a lot of things. So I guess to start with the when people had requested specifically talking about opinions, I just want to say it's incredibly obvious that this bill is reactionary. I think that it being a reaction is a good thing, though. There are certain things that we should change that we discovered recently. But I think that there is a thing to be said about jumping a little too far. If you sit on a thumbtack, you're not going to go up into the ceiling. I think we've hit the ceiling here with this thing. I think that, yes, things on such as 11.80, I think that is something that we should have that we've talked about and we should be changing. I do think that possibly the snap reaction to go this far has created quite a few things. I'd like to kind of add on to the 11.41 discussion in that I think that, well, for one, this completely changes the format of the sheets, so I guess I'd question why we're making the would this include an edit to the sheets? Would we just expect them to write it on the side? And then on the topic of the sheets, I'd like to ask again why this intends to prevent you from getting these online. I'm going to assume this was an oversight. I have no clue. I don't know. That's probably my guess. When it comes to signatures themselves, I think we need to look at that a lot further because introduction, I'm one of the, at least in my area, last people to have been taught cursive. And so people sign things. The amount of people on my signature sheet that drew a straight line is about half the sheet. You can go check it. That is, if we're going to be checking sheets, that opens up a massive can of worms that I think we need to address at the alongside doing that. I don't know, I believe, and my final question is that 11.40 mentions also having the SGU advisor do anything on this, but they are completely missing from the rest of this bill. I guess my question is why involve the advisor if they are then going to be doing absolutely nothing about it? I'll yield to the floor.
Senator Rosemilia.
I think going off from Morgan Rogers' question, I'm not really too sure about this, but I would say maybe they're just trying to see if it works out, maybe for 1 week. That's all I'm thinking. But let's see. Besides that, I would like to make a motion on 11.9.0. just because the wording's a little, I think, off. So, I would like to make a motion to change the sentence, "This does not affect signatures that are not collected by a member who wishes to run in the coming election," to this will affect signatures that are collected by a member who wishes to run in the coming election of SGU. I yield.
Do we have a second? Seconded by Pro Tem Fees. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Our president.
So just to clarify, it'll say, this does affect signatures that are collected. So can you,
Yeah.
So this does affect signatures that are collected by a member who wishes to run for election?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Our audience member.
Careful with the words coming election. When this gets passed, if it does, you put in forever. Coming election is just kind of a weird phrasing. If you want it to be from now on, then it should say from now on. But if this is just for this specific spring, then you have to say just for this, for spring 2023. Again, about future proofing, you try to make sure that, because if I don't read it, it says coming election until after the election, like, oh, well, it's just for the next one then, or something, it's not the greatest phrasing. I yield.
Chief Justice.
And please correct me if I'm wrong, to my understanding, we are now changing section 11.9.0 to, because before it was not including signatures from the election. This entire section here was not talking about signatures in the election, right? Yes. But now we're changing it so it does.
Yes.
Okay. That's fine. I don't have any issue with that. I just hope, there's been a lot there's been a large conversation talking about what happens if the Chief Justice is biased towards one person and unbiased towards another person. So if we're talking about, like, in the election sense, and I'll yield to the floor, but if we're talking in the having the Chief Justice be a component of who gets elected and who doesn't get elected, I don't know if that's to the scope of the bill, and then I'll yield to the president.
So, about the bias thing, fair and unbiased manner, just so everybody remembers, we all swore to it. Yes, technically, you can't hold somebody to that, but you're supposed to be thinking about this in a fair and unbiased manner. So, if Mike and I have some personal beef, which we do, no, I'm just kidding, but then Mike has to unbiasedly say, or have thoughts about this. But I would like to ask the Senate if we could amend it, and I'm not going to entertain it, but just amend the motion to remove the coming election. Or remove this whole election. I'll yield to Senator Rogers. He shook his head.
Gonna say the exact same thing, to be honest. So let me just preface this by saying, beforehand, as I read that statement, I read it as saying it does not apply to anything but the upcoming election. So I think that we've gone from changing it to nothing but it to, I guess, just it, which is the same thing. So I guess I'll motion to remove the line that says add 1190. This does not affect signatures that are not collected by a member who wishes to run in the upcoming election. Yes, to amend and remove. Yep.
Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Rosamilia. Do we have any discussion on the amendment? Our audience member.
To answer Chief Justice's question, the way it stands, there's a double negative in the sentence, so it's just confusing. I had to read it 4 times and then have someone else read it to me before I could see where it was coming from, what the intent was, but it kind of just says nothing. It's very confusing in the way it's phrased. So I think changing it is a good idea. And then to just quickly speak about the bias thing, we all did swear to it, but not everyone is perfectly unbiased. No one truly can be unbiased, and it sucks, yeah. Everyone swore to it, and maybe it's little biases here and there, but I think putting in checks and balances into our policies, especially something as big as this, is really important to protect our students and what they want to have heard. So I yield.
Okay. On to Senator Rosamilia.
I know we're still in a motion right now, but changing up the sentence stuff, it's still gonna say the same. It's still gonna say the same thing. You're just trying to just word it better. Is that correct? You to the floor? Oh, we're moving the whole thing.
The amendment is removed.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have any further discussion? Seeing none, as with that, going on to voting for the amendment. All those in favor? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain? With that, the amendment passes 6-0-0. Back onto the original motion. It was wet.
Bring up, as our audience member had mentioned before, the vagueness in a lot of these points. I'd like to particularly point out 11.8. I think I heard much discussion on it, that petitions can not be used to impede the ability of an SGU member. I just think more clearly defining what you're talking when saying the ability of an SGU member is, what would be in a petition that would be used to impede that, things like that would be pretty necessary to define. Students as well as student government representatives know what that entails, as well as just a reminder that as well as you hope they're never used, but an impeachment process does include a petition, and by definition that would be used to impede the ability of an SGU member to be impeaching a member of the SGU. I'll yield to the president.
So 11.8, I can see the vagueness. It's not about what the specific petition does. It's oh no, I guess it would be. No, I apologize. Yeah. So when I wrote that, my idea was the Senate can no longer so what 8.1 and 8.2 says, right? They can't table or vote down it, and then the president, and it can't impede the president's ability to veto the legislation. The thing with the vetoing, I think this might be where you're coming with, you don't have to worry about, like, let's say it's an impeachment on myself. If I veto that impeachment, the Senate can still pass it. It's that same process. But I do understand where you're coming from with 11.8, and I think it might be another redundancy, so I'll entertain the motion to just remove 11.8 because it would be the same thing in my opinion. I'll yield to Webb first.
Clarify. Also, 11.8.1, I don't see an issue with at all. It was just the 11.8, specifically because it refers to a member being singular, so any of a singular member of what a petition would do to impede such. Is that being vague can just, what I'm saying is lead the claims of any member saying like this impedes my ability to do such and invalidate, like they're off. There's nothing that prevents that in here. I'll yield back.
Yeah, so I'll keep the motion then. We'll just remove 11.8 because I think it's covered in .1, .2 there.
So moved by Senator Rosamilia. Do we have a second? Seconded by Pro Tem Fees.
Removing 11.8.
Or all of
11.8.0. Okay. And then updating the other numbers. That's possible.
Do we have any discussion on this motion? Our audience member.
A motion in a second motion. I think that this bill is good. I said that. I never, I think there are parts that are concerning. I think it would be better dealt with if we tabled it to policy committee so that we could continue. There's a lot of legislation on the table. I mean, we talked about swear-ins a bit ago. So I think instead of slowly amending the bill to say something that says something more reasonable, that maybe tables to policy, and when they bring it back, then maybe talking about it, I think that might be a better idea. So I yield.
Pro Tem Fees.
Never mind. I probably going to be good. So.
Senator Self. Have a call to question. Do we have a second? Seconded by Pro Tem Fees. Going on to a vote for a call to question. All those in favor? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain. With that, the call to question passes 6-0-0. On to voting for the motion just stated. So, all those in favor? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain. With that, that motion passes 6-0-0. Back onto the original motion to change 11.9.0. And remember, the amendment got passed. So, do we have any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, we'll be going on to voting. All those in favor? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain? With that, that motion passes 6-0-0. Back on the discussion of the bill. Our audience member.
I'd just like to reference what Pro Tem Fee said earlier about maybe changing the power from just Chief Justice to Policy Committee. I really like that. I think that's awesome. I think that the more, when we put a lot of power in a single position, it's a little concerning. So spreading it out throughout a committee allows for a more unbiased take. If one person just doesn't like the petition, or one person, everyone else can be like, dude, that you're being ridiculous. Like it's, it allows for that checks and balances. So I'd say that is a good solution. I would also continue to, encourage the bill to be moved to policy committee so that it can be revamped and, given a fresh face before it's continually talked about. I yield.
Chief Justice.
I would like to make a motion to table this bill to policy.
Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Self. All right. Going from there, do we have any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain? With that, that passes 6-0-0. That concludes discussion of that bill. As stated with the motion, we'll be going on to swear-ins. If you are getting sworn in today, please step into the center of the horseshoe. It's because it just like skipped into another motion. No, that's alright.
All right.
It's alright.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Will faithfully uphold the student government at Utica Constitution and carry out the duties of state your organization and position to the best of my ability. I will represent the students of SUNY Poly in a fair and unbiased manner. Congratulations. Just come up here and sign your name or organization.
All right. With that, we'll be going back on to new business. Bill 2223-18. The senator who is reading this is not here, so pro tem fees. Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Rosamilia. Do we have any discussion? Our president.
So technically, in our policy and procedures, the directors aren't required to be at the Senate meeting, so we decided to keep that and just put it in policy, saying that the directors aren't required to go. This is going to save time during the Senate meetings themselves, and then it kind of also fixes the redundancy of the cabinet meetings, because normally they give this same report in the cabinet that they do here. So it would be the president's duty to give the reports of the directors in the Senate meeting from what they gave in the cabinet meeting. This also allows them to be RA eligible. So we had a few student concerns last semester about not having a lot of like RA eligible positions. So by removing them being required to go to the Senate meeting, it would free up 3 hours, 2 hours, and allow them to
Senator Rosamilia.
So, point of version, when you mean RA eligible, it means if they're running for a director, then they could just become an RA at the same time because the more hours are open. Thanks.
Pro tem fees. Do You're good. Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Self. Going on to discussion for the motion. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, we'll be going on to voting. All those in favor? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain? With that, that passes 6-0-0. Going back onto the bill. Do we have any discussion? Pro tem fees. Our secretary.
Put into this. So when we originally wrote this bill, we wrote it as several separate bills, and then we were like, well, why don't we just combine them all? One of the things that I wanted to work on this semester was the director of development position. It was kind of never really understood what the position really was. So I wanted to change that. As some of you know, we have been working on the advancement of our training programs for Senate, for Cabinet, for Exec, for all of our positions, and this is what the Director of Human Relations and Development would focus on, is the implementation of different transition documents, and they would be the ones to work on contracts, because it's never really talked about whether it's the secretary that gives a position a contract or their immediate supervisor. So all of the onboarding process would be done by the Human Relations and Development, as well as implementation of different training programs. So I yield.
Senator Rosamilia.
So on bullet 3.3 dot O, the Human Relations and Development, they also have like assistant directors as well. I yield to the floor.
Our president.
So no director besides maybe the
Do we have any further discussion? Seeing none, as this is in new business, we'll be going on to Bill 2223-19. Senator Rosamilia. Do we have a second? Seconded by Pro Tem Fees.
We, the members of the student government at Utica of SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to add a transfer document to the policies and procedures I yield.
Do we have any discussion? Pro Tem Fees. Our audience member.
This bill, I couldn't tell you how excited it was. I read the bill and I was like, aw, I thought it was going to be about transition documents. The term that is used in SGU to transition between heads of, like, you know, from me to Trevor, for Chris to Aiden. 'Cause there's nowhere saying that we have to do that. And I know for a fact that it doesn't happen. I didn't receive one. And I sure didn't give Trevor one. I trained him, and I received training as well. But I know there's some cases that have happened in recent years where someone has gotten no training and has not received transition documents. So I guess that's not what this bill is about. I love this. It's cool, great. But I think we should also consider, if we're talking about transferring positions, about leaving some sort of information for, you know, whoever's going to take it up next. I think that because we also call those transition documents. So just, you know, a thought.
On to Kitty Sports.
I believe I know at least most of what the hands are about to say. We are working on I believe it's going to be a bill. We're working on a bill that's going to go on the table about 2-3 weeks from now that is going to help with the transitioning of ORCADs. So pretty much what what happened last year doesn't happen again. We had very little training, very little time, and all of a sudden we were thrown into the summer having to plan the entire academic year. So we are working with I'm working with the rest of the org heads, our advisor, and Dan, Vice President Dan, to do a more formal transition into the next org head. Yeah, I yield.
Senator Rosamilia.
Point of information for Article 7 or Bullet 7.3.3. It says in the event that the new position is an appointed position, they must follow the current policy and procedure rules and regulations for the appointment process. I don't really understand like the difference between an appointment and like an election process. I yield to the floor.
I'll yield to the pro tem.
So there are a few positions in SGU which are appointed positions, so that gives students that leverage in control of those positions, takes applications from students, and then basically gives them a job for like a job interview. Elected positions are what you went through for a semester, right? You fill out your signature sheet and you get elected by the student body. So for example, the assistant treasurer, if I remember correctly, is not an elected position. The treasurer appoints that student through a process of job applications and interview. Does that answer your question? Yes. No problem.
Is there any other discussion? Our secretary.
So just another thing to point out with this bill is after working a little bit with the previous treasurer, I realized that although there are a lot of, different positions, for example, Senator Humphrey, who's not here with us today, was previously in CFB. So there was a lot of difficulty with those types of transitions with stipends as well. There is a process, but it wasn't sure what date to use of the transition. Is it the date that they sweared into their new position, the date that their new contract, did they sign a resignation form? Because if so, they have to wait 2 weeks. There is a lot of confusion, so that's why we decided to make this transfer document. I looked, I am a business major and I love human resources. So I looked for the Society of Human Resource Management website and I mimicked theirs in a way the student government and our policy, our financial policy would merge well with this document. So I hope that answers any further questions. I yield.
What?
Just in any case, that might just be good to add into the bill for if you're transferring from an org into more of a senator role or something in the SGU, since these are much different positions and also you would have different supervising parties, that something will be in here about notification to whoever, wherever that said position is, their supervisor on it from beforehand, some sort of recognition piece that there's something left there, they're aware, they know that they need a replacement for said position, should be something definitely specified, laid down. Yield.
I would ask for Dan's signature, like, hey Dan, leaving, could you sign this document? Dan automatically knows that I'm leaving, and then I would have, there's a Tom Farmer over here, sign a new one, so it's giving both supervisors a chance to know, hey, someone is transferring. I don't know if that sort of answers your concern. I take it back to us. It should be under attachment at the very bottom, it'll say appendix XX, what, 23, I was meant to I should say appendix 23, student government, plan. Right under 7.3.
Leaving unfinished work that they started, something along the lines of that, to be added in there would just be preferable. I'll yield.
Do we have any other discussion for the bill? Alright. Senator Rosmiller?
I just had a question just like based on like transfer and stuff and like communication. So the old contract and the new contract, like for example, the vice president and media, they would communicate beforehand, like talk to each other, like throughout the transfer process, if that's correct. I yield to Secretary Wadsworth.
Yeah, so what would happen is really the person that wants to transition would go to their supervisor, similar as you would if you were going, from Walmart to Price Chopper, right? So you'd go to your supervisor and say, hi, I would like to let you know that I will be going to Wildcat Media. And although Walmart doesn't have to sign off on something for you to go to Price Chopper, it's similar to that transition, right? So you'd have to go to your supervisor anyway and say, hi, I'm leaving. But instead of signing a resignation form saying I am leaving permanently, you're switching documents. It's what a lot of different companies do, whether you get a promotion or You want to go from one department to another department. That's how a lot of companies do it. I hope that answers your question. I'll yield it back to Senator Rosemalia.
Like also wondering they usually talk, like the two contracts talk together without the Senate, without the person transferring knowing, like they're like behalf of the senator kind of thing. I yield.
All right. I'd like to remind everyone, just a heads up, 2 minutes until open forum. On there, pro tem fees. Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Self. Going on to discussion for the motion. Do we have any? All right. Seeing none. Going on to voting. All those in favor? All those who oppose? And all those who abstain. With that, that passes 6-0-0. Going back onto the discussion of the bill, and we have 1 minute until open forum. Seeing none, we're going on to, there's no point in reading another bill, so open forum. Do we have any discussion for open forum? Yes, our audience member.
Hello, I'm back. Okay, just 1 second. Sorry. Okay, so for those of you who don't remember me, my name is Matt Hulse. I'm an interactive media game design major. I was planning a trip for the IMGD major to GDC. Quick follow-up again to that, of course, GDC is the Game Developers Conference. It's held in San Francisco. Great networking opportunity for seniors, right? Like the best for the IMGD major. With that out of the way, I approached you guys in the fall with the proposal for obviously fundraising for the event. I'm happy to say that we did reach our goal for that, of course, and a little more. So we're really excited. We're moving on in the process. You know, timetable's a little bit crunched because we're getting closer. So moving along, kind of not rushing, but we want to get things in place to make sure that, you know, everything's perfect. So we also worked with Empire State Development. We got a discounted booth on the at GDC. So what that means is we actually have space for representation of either the SGU, SUNY Poly. I've talked about that with Wildcat Esports, etc. So, you know, that's open for discussion. If anyone else is also interested, I'd love to hear that. So we're still looking for parties. If anybody's interested to sponsor the trip, or if anyone wants kind of like has a suggestion, I would absolutely love to hear that. So with that out of the way, also talk to career services about this, obviously, because, you know, that falls a lot into their realm with networking for seniors and job placement. So got a meeting with Mike after this. And then finally, time is of the essence. Big reservations coming up. Talking to people. So yeah, I just want to let you guys know that's all I have to say. Does anyone have any? Yes, we met our fundraiser. Yes. Okay. Anyone else?
All right. Our president?
So, just a quick question.
Yeah. So that's the great part. So essentially, when we did our fundraising, I approached the dean. I asked a bunch of questions about to Morgan, and then actually looked at the laws around what do we have to do for it to be considered a fundraising event. And essentially, we have received the money. We just need to, upon starting the fundraising event, we need to just have an account to deposit that into. So we've raised the money. It just needs to change hands now. So that's essentially what I was going to talk with you later on today about. And I talked to a bunch of people over there too. So just working out, I just need to figure out who I have to talk to do that. So.
All right. I'm going to yield the chair to the secretary, as I do have a class at 6.
Do you need me to?
No, you're okay.
Yeah, the meeting's still on.
You're good.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm all done. So I'm gonna.
Oh, okay. I'm present.
Yeah, so I think we did mention that we would help match that. So Morgan, since you have that close connection,
Senator Rosamelia. Our audience member.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about, while I was going around asking my survey question today, the biggest question was, are you an SGU? I said, not really a senator or anything. And they said, okay, so why do you care? And I think I've been asked this question before when I come up and speak. And in a perfect world, there would be, as Chief Justice Tabor said, 10 more people like me who are going to go through all this and get the information out. But I think the problem is that SGU isn't very accessible to the average student. I mean, the policy procedures aren't up to date. It's just not, for someone to just walk, if I just pulled someone out there, tried to get them to sit down and say, hey, what do you think of this? Like, you have to have an understanding of policies and procedures. And so, the only reason I'm here, not to be mean, not to cause problems, to make sure that students are, being fairly represented. I would like to implore everyone to think about their jobs and what the job descriptions are. I would not to single anyone out. This is not towards anyone. Let's say you're a senator. My understanding of the senator position is that you represent the people in your class level. I think it's hard to represent someone without going out and speaking to people of your class level. And I was able to speak to 22 people in an hour and a half just today, just randomly walking around. I was in here, I went to the campus center, I walked back. So I would like to see SGU reach out more to the students and do, I think internal changes are great, helps things run smoothly, but I think there needs to be a push for things that the students want. I know last year there was a bill put on the table by recommendation of me. It's called TikTok on the Clock. It's about putting clocks in every classroom. It just died. That came directly from a student that talked to me because they knew I was a part of SGU. They didn't know who their senators were. They didn't know who to speak to. They knew because I didn't shut up about CFB that I was someone they could talk to. So I would just like to, put the idea in people's heads of reaching out and speaking to the people who you're supposed to be representing, because that's how we get, that's how we get the students involved. That's how you get more people like me to come here and talk at these meetings. I yield.
No, I think that's a great thing, and I know I can't speak much on this, but I will say to look out. I know it's not much, but we are starting open houses this semester, so that way students do have an opportunity to come in, get some coffee, get some, snacks and things like that, and come meet with everybody on a very informal level. We are aware that these can be somewhat intimidating, so we decided to start this semester. Pro-tem fees.
Thank you so much for bringing this up. I love SGU. I don't shut up about it. But my biggest gripe with our policies and procedures is it's so dense to read through. So I'm actually working on a project right now where I'm taking our financial policy, I'm taking our policy and procedures, I'm taking our constitution, and I'm making it into a readable version. So if you're a club member, you don't want to sort through our financial policy. Our financial policy is hard, and I don't like it. I don't like reading it. It makes me nervous. So I'm actually working on something like that. Would you be interested in possibly helping me out with that? If I sent you an email and would you be interested in that?
Our audience member.
Yeah. I would love to do that. I know a couple of students I surveyed earlier said that they would only sign a petition if I specifically gave it to them, because they knew I was part of SGU, and they knew I would, they were like, I trust in what you're saying, that kind of stuff. It's not like, I'm not a senator, I'm not sitting on the horseshoe, I'm sitting in the audience, so it's not like I don't want to be involved. So I'd love to. And then I think you get a readable version, and then you start sending it out to people. You say, what part of this makes you confused? Because I think that the communication between SG and the students is is very lacking. I yield.
Webb.
More on what you said, Bailey. I think that it's a great thing that I know we talked about it a lot over last semester doing those open houses and everything. They're a great way to get students to come in, keep their attention because they have something else to do. But I do think it does have a point where it comes to senators having that responsibility to every now and then reach out themselves to the student body, since they're supposed to be representing them. I know personally I speak to students about web and SGU stuff all the time in classes. They're always super happy to talk about it too. That might be a side effect of web, to be honest, because events, but still, normally they're very happy to talk about something, especially since if you make it pertain to them, it's not you don't need to do it often. You could just do it, like, you know, every now and then when you have class. I just think it is something that really should be encouraging. I yield.
Our president.
Yeah, I agree with Webb. I think that's kind of where we lost with the roles of, or where we forgot about the roles of the senators, right? It's not the job of the vice president or the president to ask students, the vice president and the president are to tell the faculty and administrators what senators do themselves. And I think that's where maybe some of the disconnect happened last semester, where students were coming to like Webb and not to the senators and their committees. So I think hopefully with the social media posts and everything, that's just starting us in the right direction, and hopefully continue that. But I definitely agree with everybody. So I yield back to that.
I just have another point. For instance, do you know have some trouble or you're not sure where to pursue speaking to students? Just could bring up pro tem meetings, just going to web events. Students, especially students that are more likely to be involved and maybe come and try to learn about SGU, often are students that are active enough to at least go to web events, want to be social. So often we used to have senators come to web events very frequently. It's a great place to get to know students on campus, especially ones that want an active role.
Our president.
It's just Aiden and I talking to each other. And to continue to go off of that, I think that, and I'm totally guilty of it. You saw it in the agenda. I think what the execs need to remember, and maybe one other senator, I'm not going to call her out, but is that everybody's responsible, all the senators are responsible for writing bills and resolutions. So it shouldn't be Jay Fish, Dan, Bailey, and Eva. It should be Morgan, Omaida, Bayla, and everybody else will. So I think when we get a concern instead of us writing it, we distribute that to the appropriate senator or their committee, and have the committee do it. And then we'll get everybody else to do it.
What a great professional development day topic. Does anybody have any further discussion for open forum? Senator Rogers.
To I guess I'll toss my own when it comes to like writing things. I'd also like to see at least like this is probably going to get really weirdly worded, but when I look at like I'm going to call them acts because it's just going to group together bills and resolutions into one word. When I see like formats in these things can vary greatly. And the versions that we have, I think that the templates that we have are all right in describing them, but at the same time, I'm also speaking from a position of, I guess, advantage in doing this because I've been reading these for a while. I've done this sort of thing outside of here for a little bit, so I can read sort of these quote-unquote legal documents and say, okay, I get what this means. But I've seen quite a few people, and I've had to like kind of talk through with them. I think that in the past, how many times I've heard, if you want to write anything, you have to go to a member of the student government. I think that whilst it's great for us to be able to start doing, and I think we should start as a group, the senators start writing some more things. Be ready for an email. It's all good, I promise. I think that we could also try and step to make it a little more accessible or available for community members to try and step forward and do those things too. I think we should try to encourage them or at least work with them more. And I'll yield.
We do have 3 minutes until 2 o'clock. Our president.
Yeah, so students are allowed to write their own bills and resolutions. What they need the senator for is just that formatting. But the senator shouldn't be changing the meat of it unless it is like a case where that's
Web. Do we have a second? Pro tem fees. Anybody oppose unanimous consent to adjournment? Great. Seeing none, we adjourn at 1:50 of 4:02.